Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Wraith Designs, and today I figured I'd upload a follow-up video to my last view about a urban street set that I'm creating. I've been working on it on and off for the past few days here, as well as some other projects. So I've been trying to kind of fit everything into my schedule, and right now I figured it was time to really work on this a little bit more, and I mean that by like optimization. So what I did is, instead of using the old curbs in my set that I was showing before, I just basically took the curbs from another set that I have. It's actually two. It's going to be the kind of urban neighborhood set. As you see, more grass is over here and the sidewalks more inward, versus the other one that I had, which was, sidewalk was here, curb was here, right? And then you might have like more concrete here towards like storefronts. So I basically just took those curbs from that, separated them, and then just turned them into their own modular pieces to fit with this set, because as you can see when I spin around here, really high frame rate. I wish I had something that could actually show you, but yeah, before it was struggling to go above 40, and once I got rid of those curbs, it's just phenomenal. The results are just amazing. So another thing I did is that these pieces here, little grass, and I will show it in an updated video of my set, is that I took into account having more vertices. I'm probably going to recreate them again altogether to make it even better, but as you can see, the shadows aren't perfect, and the reason for this is because, again, this is vertex lighting. Now, these vertices aren't perfect in a sense, they are optimized, but there's a better way to do it. So I will recreate these so that the shadows that come off of 3D models that will then go on BSP brushes, because that's what this is, will look pretty close. Like, for instance, over here, you can see it's on the grass. It's a little bit more straight because it's the shape of the polygons as well as where the vertices are. So it does depend on polygons as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a lot more polygons for each piece. This way, the shadowing will look way better. And I'll be able to do this because I was able to optimize the curves, which were the biggest memory hog that I had. Obviously, you can see here, these aren't really lined up. That's because these textures were designed for the other set that I had, where in the corners here, they would actually dip down, sort of like what these do, but here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this texture again and just move this over closer to here. But other than that, I mean, I pretty much pulled it off. I'm going to, obviously put more of this throughout the level. And just to make it look better, I made the BSPs have the grass here. But what I want you to kind of take a look here is that these right here, these do look like the 3D models of the concrete slabs that I had in my set. But what I really did is I took those actual static meshes and I turned it into a brush. Now, I tried to do it with some of the other ones, but it just wouldn't take. But that was with the old set. So I may be able to recreate this and find a way to pull that off. But that is why, when you look over here, you can clearly see the shadowing is like rough, because I do have the shadow map resolution at a lower quality rather than what I had before. Now, once I fix all the 3D assets to have better polygon setups with the vertices and stuff like that for the vertex lighting, I'll be able to increase the shadows on all the other assets. Now, you don't have to have them highest quality. I mean, as long as they look pretty good. In a game like Killing Floor, you're going to be spending most of your time shooting zombies and things like that. Now, I don't have anything in my level because they'd be chasing me around, and trying to show you this would be a pain in the butt. But you can clearly see, and I'll get down closer, you see a little bit of red there. And the reason for this is because I actually have lighting that's coming from this direction, and somehow it got turned to red. So you're seeing kind of the remnants of that lighting. And this is the ambient lighting in the level from a skylight. Now, I have obviously more lights coming from the city, so that's not meant to be there. That's not like a problem with the textures or the model itself. It's just that's what's happening. But basically over here, you can see pretty good optimization just by looking at the edges. Now, when I show this to you in 3ds Max in the next video, or at least I might make it part of this video and just put it together. You'll see exactly what I mean about it being way better optimized. Like every little edge you see here is literally the only lines and edges that you're going to find. Right over here in the corner, that right there, that's just one poly. This is one poly. Again, one poly. So it's very, very well optimized. Same thing over here. It's just one straight piece that ends right about there. Okay, and it just works way better. I mean, having high polys isn't always obviously a good thing, but what I'm trying to save a lot for the optimization and the memory for would be like things like this, like light posts. Now I still got to figure out how to get the light inside of that, make it emissive, and then make the glow from inside of the light, and then at the same time casting light downward instead of just a big shadow like this. And that's because what's happening is that the light is above the asset, right? So it's putting shadows down here like that. So once it's inside of that, what would probably happen, if anything, you'd see shadows from like the side pieces here and maybe a little bit underneath, but not much. So this would be way smaller around the base, but you'd actually be able to see these for what they are. See those glows in the distance here? Now I'm going to mess around with the coronas to make them look a little better. I might even create my own, and they would look more realistic as you walk away. You know, they wouldn't be as big, but you just got to mess around with the settings to kind of make it look good. But this is basically how you do it. You know, you create a modular asset set with grass, curbs, concrete slabs. You can use meshes if you want, or you could, if you can, turn into a BSB with the convert option, which would be like if you right-clicked on a asset in the game engine or editor, it'll say convert, and then you can put convert to brush or convert to static mesh. So you could take a brush and convert that to a static mesh if you wanted to. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind, the way to get, like, see over here, for instance, this is how you can really tell how big the polygons here. You can see the little lines going in between the square lightly, like you see the shadowing, and it's broken apart by that little sliver of light. That's because there's actually a line in between each square like this. And so what's happening is that the shadow is forming across the polygons. And that's the difference between vertex lighting and actual lighting in like UDK, Unreal Engine 4, where it actually burns it in. It doesn't depend on vertices, and the way they get around that is to actually have light map UVs set on a second channel of an asset, meaning that the first channel, UV channel in a 3D modeling program, would be for the textures. The second channel would be for the light map, and that would be specifically to tell the engine, okay, this is where, you know, this is where my polygons are, this is how I'm mapped out, and if you were to burn shadows over me in a level, they will look a lot better and cleaner. It all depends on the resolution though. Just like this, for instance, see? That doesn't really look right. It looks like it's doing a zigzag like a lightning piece, and that's because of the way that I have the vertices and polygons set up. So you want to make sure you kind of do a little bit better job. So I'm going to keep testing this out to see how far I can go with the polygons and to create a smooth looking shadow. I would like to create a higher resolution for the shadows just to make it look more realistic, but I do want to be able to play the game in a high frame rate like this. Another thing is, I don't know if anybody noticed, but like say I throw a grenade over here. I don't know if that really no, I guess not. It was just me. I noticed before though, and maybe it was just a glitch, but when I did that with older assets, even the texture for the grenade didn't even look right once it blew up. Like all the, you know. For some reason what was happening is that like over here on the curb and then like on the sidewalk, it just was not displaying right, and I think it was because of the way that I had it set up, but now it's obviously working the way it should. But either way, I hope you like this video, and if you'd like to see me finish this level off, let me know. I'm probably going to do it anyway, but I kind of need to get motivated. I got a few other projects I'm going to be working on, and hopefully I'll be able to find time during all that as well as moving, and continue on this pretty sweet map that I've made. So yeah. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm back, and I figured I'd add this little piece to the video shown earlier. So this is the set right here. This is a little bit more optimized, a lot more optimized actually. And I took the curbs from another set, and I also took the liberty to drop the height to kind of match more where the grass is, but at the same time be able to keep the appearance of a ramp kind of leading down towards this here. Now you can see in the corners here it's a little bit high, but what I'm going to be doing is putting flat 3D planes with a grass texture, like a PNG that's masked, so you can see grass coming out, or like little weeds and things like that, to kind of spicing up the set. I'm also going to be putting some of them on here as well, but mainly between like the cracks here. I was also thinking about doing more of the texture to make it look more realistic with cracks and all sorts of other stains and things on top. Kind of have like cigarette butts or something like that around the side here. Put some little drains on certain parts, or at least make them modular so you can just hook them up to whatever side here. As well as another piece would be like having like concrete coming up to about here, you know what I mean, coming down like this. Some sets have that, so I'm going to do that as well as soon as I can. But as you can see, let me click on this. You can see how the polygons are with the vertices. So that's why you were seeing the shadowing kind of do this. And what you really want to do is not really have this if you don't need to. Again, it imported in the engine a little bit more different than this. It's a little bit more serious, but this is, I thought, might help. But I realize in certain situations it just really doesn't. So I'm going to recreate these pieces so that evenly across all the sections will have a lot of polygons that are straight, and then I'm just going to bring it into the engine to look exactly the same. That right there will solve my shadowing issue. And I'll be able to spare a little memory for more polygons, because in a sense these are all very few polygons, okay? And even so, using BSP brushes in their place seem to work a lot better. So in certain models that you're able to convert from 3D static mesh to a brush, I'd say do it. So you're probably thinking, well, why import it anyway? Well, that's how you do it. You got to take a 3D mesh and then right click on it in the game engine, for instance. Is it still open? No. Anyway, what would happen is you'd click on this while it's already in the world and convert to BSP brush. That's basically how the menu works, and vice versa. So if you want to take a brush and turn into a static mesh, you could. Options there. So what I would probably suggest, again, is to make sure that you keep testing your assets. Anything that you create, save entire project files, save it often, and save it in different steps through your modeling process. This way, if you realize you made a mistake and you went really far into it, you can go back and edit it. Now, for these sets, it's a little easier to do outside of like maybe really huge modular sets with a lot of details. This was a little bit more easier for me to go back and do edits for. So I would advise, again, make sure you save and save often. Now I've already have the textures applied, things like that. You can create your own textures. You can blend textures in and stuff in Photoshop, and there's ways to create textures that are seamless with a lot of details. So I'd look into that. But yeah, as you can see up in the corner here, these are the statistics. Now this is everything in the level right here. 418 polygons, 335 vertices. The frames per second right now goes up to 230 to 190. All right, so for the most part, it's going to be well above 60. Sometimes when you kind of do it in a different way, it will go down to like 40. For a split second, it might go down to 30. But for the most part, you're up in the hundreds. And this is how this is how you can tell, one, how optimized it's probably going to be in the game engine. But it doesn't always reflect that. Sometimes it seems like it's great here, you bring in the game engine depending, and for some reason it's just not running smoothly. But luckily in the video that I just showed you, it is running phenomenal. So I will be concentrating again a little bit more on this to create the better dispersion of shadows in the game engine, and creating little extra details as well. I was thinking about making a few of these where it's cracked, kind of broken down, so give it a little bit more of a unique spice. But again, you want to keep in mind that every time you make a new model and you do an edit to it, it has to remember this model and the other one, okay? Meaning that if you have this in the game engine, that's great. And instead of just applying a new texture to each one, you're going to have the game engine remember this, and then remember the version where it might have a little cracks in the corners and stuff like that. Some people just say, hey, why don't you just make a texture that has, you know, damage on it? And you can, but it's not going to be like the new engines where you have normal maps and you can fake it with a normal map. You're really going to not be able to see that. You'll see it for what it is. So that's why I've done little things like this, you know what I mean? Little indents. Now, like if I stop right here and I don't press anything, it kind of shows you how the shadows will hit it. See what I mean? Now, I've also turned down in this, I turned down the anti-aliasing and the shadow quality because it was actually bogging it down. And if you're curious on how to do this, you have to go under Configure Viewports. See, lighting, shadows, quality. So let me ramp that up. Doesn't have to be too high. We'll just do 8. Display performance. I have no anti-aliasing, so let me do that. Apply. Okay. So as you can see, I mean, it didn't really change too much, but it definitely looks a lot better when I click on it and you see that there's not a lot of the little jagged edges because of the anti-aliasing. Now let me get rid of the edge faces. Alright. So as you can see, this is pretty much, you know, it looks pretty good outside of obviously looking pretty plain as well. But this is just the idea, you know, you want to get this together, you want to map out how you're going to create your modular set, whatever it may be. Keep in mind what pieces you'll need. This is fairly easy. Now over here, I have a normal flat square instead of having the edges. Like for instance, if I had another piece of a ramp here, these would show up just like they do on the side here, with the little angles. But I also have to make another one that matches the size of this. So what I'm going to do is, you know, make another one of these that fits this size. So I realize it's too small. If I try to put this here, there's going to be a big open gap, at least on one side. So I have to recreate that so that it fits a little square. Let me turn this real quick. So I'd have to basically, let's say I'm just making a plan, okay? And I click on this. As you can see, I have everything snapped. You see that little red, yellow cross behind it moving? So if I were to do this, and I wanted to create that plane, since I have everything snapped, and that's just a plane. It's not like a box where, you know, you have to have height and all that other stuff. But the reason I create the box first is because it seems to be easier to have appear in your game engine. And planes, unless you click on a texture and have it two-sided, for general purpose of what I've noticed in this program is that one side will be visible in game engine, the other side won't. And you got to be careful. You don't know which side that's going to be unless you know exactly what you're doing. Sometimes you just be like, oh, hey, I created a plane. I can see it in this. You know, I have the pivot and everything snapped properly, but when you bring it into the engine, all of a sudden it's just invisible. And you're like, well, what the heck's going on here? I can see the little red cross in the game engine that shows that something's there and there's a pivot point, but where is it? It's because it only shows one side. So you have to make sure that the text you put on it is double-sided, and there might be a few other options to make it appear in game. So, but yeah, this is basically what I would do. I then, you know, obviously look at the pieces, you know, and say, okay, I need another piece like this, but it has to be grass. And this way you could spread it all the way to the back, things like that. Now, I could do something like, well, instead of putting meshes everywhere with a bunch of polygons, I could get away with making it a BSP, a certain size to a certain point. The only parts that I really had to worry about were obviously pieces that you can't recreate in Unreal Engine, in a sense where they're basically just like shapes, squares, rectangles, you know, columns, cones, things like that. But that's about it. You know, you put in the settings and the numbers for width and height, length and all that, and that's about it. And then it creates a brush. You could edit vertices in there and try to pull this off, but if you're going to go that far, you might as well just make it in a 3D modeling program and then bring it into the game engine. And like I said, you could always convert a static mesh to a brush and vice versa. So anyway, let me get rid of this. I hope you learned a little bit of something here. And again, I will be working on this until I'm satisfied that it is complete, and once it is, I will be putting it online for sale. I'll even put a link down below the videos, and I will eventually get to finishing off that level. It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be more of an urban neighborhood, so I gotta create some houses and things like that in 3ds Max or use Revit. bring those models in, texture them, um, all that good stuff. Because again, if I'm bringing in static meshes, you got to make sure the shadows look proper on it. Or you could make like certain parts of the house with static meshes, and the rest you probably want to do BSP if you can get away with it. So I would advise doing that first, but you want to make sure that you have things on your house that make it stick out so it doesn't look so blocky and completely ridiculous. Once you learn how to do that, you'll be able to pretty much create anything in the same manner. I know in the older engines they did start using a lot of static meshes from like Unreal Tournament 2004 onward, but they still were using a majority of BSPs because it was a balancing act, and if you use too many static meshes, it just bogs it down. Also, they use what they call zones, and in Killing Floor and Unreal Tournament 2004 and games like that using that engine, zones would basically be like, okay, let's say say you're over here, right? And say for some reason this is a wall going up. Here's a corner. If you're standing over here and you're moving this way, if you have zones set up, what's happening is that anything out of your view will not be rendered, meaning that it won't be in the memory. Once you get to a certain point, it's going to render that, so that by the time you turn the corner, you can see it, right? So those zones will help with culling, which means that it just pretty much takes out parts that you can't see. And then once you're coming around there, they will start forming. So this is what helped them optimize maps and things like that. You can even go on the Unreal Legacy wiki if you put it in Google and look up map optimization. They'll explain exactly what that is. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that bell notification, because you might not even see some of my videos unless you do. And yeah, I'll catch you all later.